What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, and welcome into a practice report presented by Byers Auto. That's the 40-year vet Tim May. That's Andy Baxter. And fellas, we will be inside the Horseshoe in just 3 days for the Ohio State spring game. You know who will not be playing in that spring game? Mr. Devin Brown, the Ohio State quarterback hopeful in the quarterback competition, out of the spring game. Procedure on a finger on his throwing hand. I can't say throwing finger because the last time I checked, you throw it with more than just one finger. But
some are more important than the others.
Yeah, it's a finger on the throwing hand for Devin Brown. He had a procedure. He will have what Ryan Day says a full summer, which to me sounds like bad timing on when this happened. If it would have happened last week, maybe he's out for a week or two and he's there for the spring game.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not, but I think it's just bad timing considering he will still have a full summer of work. Tim, what does this mean for the Ohio State quarterback battle?
Well, what it should mean is all defensive linemen should wear those pads on their heads, on their helmets in practice. You know what I mean? So when you come down on their head,
thanks, Tim.
You don't.
I was having a good hair day.
You don't have a finger problem. You know, a little small fracture or whatever it ended up being. What does it mean? It means, number one, people are going to get their first look at Tristan Gebbia in a primary role because he's the number 2 quarterback at the moment behind Kyle McCord, you got to think. But just what I'm looking forward to, let's just get to that. What I'm looking forward to Saturday is seeing how the offensive line, because it's going to be ones versus ones, twos versus twos, probably ones versus twos. But initially, as Ryan Day said, it's going to be ones versus ones. I'm very interested to see how this offensive line operates when Jim Knowles and company turn up the heat a little bit and really come after them on occasion. It won't be all day. I even asked Ryan that at the press conference today, is do you just kind of like throw the kitchen sink at them, to see if they can handle it? Well, it's April. It's going to be April the 15th, not September 2nd. You throw maybe the toilet paper and maybe the lid, the toilet seat at them, but maybe not everything. And it's going to be interesting to see how this offensive line, which, as Ryan was honest about saying, it isn't there yet. There are several positions. Basically, all 3 of those positions sound like they're up for grabs, just like they were going into the spring. Maybe center, probably center and right tackle more than left tackle, where they can definitely play with Josh Fryer, but I'm interested in watching the offensive line handle situations on Saturday.
I agree, Tim. I'm not going to completely gloss over the quarterback thing with Kyle McCord being available, Devin Brown not. Andy, I know that you have some thoughts on that, so we're going to get there. Go ahead, because I think that it does provide people a glimpse of seeing Kyle McCord more than they'll be able to see Devin Brown. And we'll get back to offensive and defensive line, but I didn't want to leave without Andy having his opinion on this quarterback thing.
Well, I think a lot of people are already talking about, this is Joe Burrow again, but that was a different time of the year when that injury happened.
Right.
This also seems to be a little bit less severe. Ryan said that he will have pretty much a full summer, as Spencer mentioned, and also just that he did get to practice a lot this spring, so he has improved, he has developed throughout the spring. So it's not like this was a lost part of the offseason for him. He will be back at a certain point. But I thought it was interesting the way he talked about the quarterbacks. Said one day one has the upper hand, the next the other has the upper hand. It just feels like there hasn't been one guy to separate from the other. Now, of course, Kyle came in with the upper hand in terms of having the experience, a start underneath his belt. But, Ryan said in February he wants to name a starter by the end of spring. I don't know if we've gotten to that point, and now it begs the question, can you get to that point if Devin can't even compete in the spring game? Now, how much are you going to actually use that? Because we've seen Ohio State quarterbacks not perform well in the spring game and then do very well in the season. Yeah. So, how much do you even factor that in? But I wonder how much that extends the position.
It takes a little bit of the luster off of the marquee value of the spring game is what it does more than anything else, and that's kind of the disappointing thing for all of us. We all wanted to see, I think, both of these guys going at it on Saturday. Now it's going to be Tristan Gebbia showing why they agreed, and both of them got together, and he transferred to Ohio State. Now you're going to see some of the benefits of that, I do believe, because he's looked pretty good out here when we've gotten to watch some scrimmage situations. But it's kind of like, you're going to go see Mike Tyson versus so-and-so, and now they've replaced that guy with another guy. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of a disappointment, but it might still be a great show.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Tim, and I think that you're still going to see some good things from Kyle McCord. And, I go back to when Ryan Day said that he would like to name a starter in February. Well, I think every coach would like to name a starter at the end of spring. And I think if you asked Ryan Day, give him a little truth serum right now, he'd probably take those words back. Because, in an ideal world, of course you want to name a starter in the spring. You want to have that proven leader going into the summer, into that fall. Was that ever realistic when you have two guys who haven't really played a ton at Ohio State? I don't think it was. And so you want to name a starter, of course, in spring. You always do. But I don't think that was ever a realistic thing to expect from either of these guys to show themselves, especially if it's going to be Devin Brown, because I think Kyle McCord started here, and Devin would have had to be over the top impressive to overtake him. And so I just think that this is a good opportunity for Kyle McCord almost to remind people, especially now with Devin Brown being out. Kyle McCord has a chance to remind this fan base, this massive, massive fan base, hey, I was a 5-star player. I'm pretty mobile. I can make these throws. I can do this. I learned from C.J. Stroud. I learned under Ryan Day for the last 2 years. This is a big opportunity, I think, for Kyle McCord to kind of reassert himself as that 5-star player he was coming out of high school in 2021.
Yeah, and I've said all along, and y'all have too, both of these guys are talented.
Oh, yeah, no question.
There's no doubt about it. That's why I keep reiterating the concern I would have if I was his coaching staff coming out of spring, going into the spring game, coming out of spring is, do I have a solid starting offensive line I can lean on? Because that's going to set the stage for all the other stuff. Because we know, obviously, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams aren't going to be in any kind of tackle situation on Saturday. Neither is Evan Pryor, who's still, they kept him on the side burner there through the spring. So you're going to see a lot of Dallin Hayden, Chip Trainum, and a couple other guys at the running back spots. At the wide receiver spots, they're not going to put Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't think, in a lot of jeopardy. That would be foolish on Saturday, but you're going to see him play some. But, everybody's excited to see Carnell Tate, for example. Everybody's excited to see Noah Rogers. Everybody's excited to see Jelani Thurman, a guy that, as you know, I'm very high on and what we've seen of them. But, man, you still wanted to see Kyle McCord and Devin Brown just from a conjecture standpoint of being able to talk about it for another month. Well, I thought this guy looked better in these kind of situations.
Yeah, it would have provided us a lot of content, a lot of clips to cut, a lot of fun to be had, a lot of conversations that could have been started. What did you think about this play action throw? How about this guy who did this? Why did Devin Brown throw an interception in that situation?
I thought Devin looked a little quicker to the edge.
Yeah, well,
things like that.
We don't get that. Maybe that's.
And by the way, one of the eye-opening plays of this spring was when Brian Hartline called that quarterback boot around the right side the other day in a red zone situation out here, and Kyle McCord was fast getting around and not getting touched in a black jersey, which that's all it took to tackle him, and nobody did it. There are a lot of things that could be surprising to people on Saturday. Of course, the quarterbacks would be protected.
Yeah.
I remember Joe Burrow, man, his first spring, he was the one that wasn't protected, and he got tattooed.
Yeah.
And that was the day I've told people this a million times. That's the day when I thought he had greatness in him, because he was getting tattooed and still putting the ball on the money.
Yeah.
Too bad about that wrist injury preseason of 2017.
Yeah, well, maybe it's for the best that we don't get to talk about both these guys from just watching the spring game. Maybe it's for the best that the fan base doesn't see both of these guys into the spring as offensive line coach Justin Fry makes an appearance through the building. I will say, fellas, as we wrap up spring ball here, the vibes in this building are pretty good. Ryan Day feels really good about where they're at recruiting-wise. The momentum is real.
Wow,
and there was a new collective announced today with NIL in that space. The Buckeyes feel like they're on the right direction there. That story's at lettermenrow.com as far as the direction that this program's heading. Again, the recruiting, the outlook coming out of spring ball. They all know that they're about to take a nice little vacation, I think, after spring ball ends. It does feel like this place is in a very good position right now with the Coaches Clinic on deck here tomorrow, which is what they're setting up for right now.
Once the boat starts rowing in the right direction with everybody, Ohio State there should be no comparison between the offerings and the depth of collectives that would be associated with Ohio State football. And this isn't like gushing when you consider the size of the city that this place is located in, the size of the alumni base, the size of the Buckeye Nation, which is a real deal.
Yeah.
It's more of people rowing the boat in the same direction, and I think you're starting to see that, and it could be a sight to behold here in another year.
Sounds like a great weekend on deck, Andy. What we're going to talk about it more on bowl predictions on Friday, but what are you looking forward to seeing? Maybe one big thing you want to see in the spring game.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that depth concern on both sides of the line, really, more on the defensive line. That's what Ryan Day talked about. You know, we focus so much on the quarterbacks, the wide receivers that won't be available, the linebackers that won't be available, but like the defensive ends, really, he said there's 5, and they need to be worried about having enough guys in terms of rotation for a drive goes too long, and then you need guys to come in for the next drive. And so it's little things like that during spring games that I think give coaches the biggest headaches, because sometimes you're not stacked at a position where you need to rotate guys in and out. So the defensive line will be watching. Offensive line, of course, I'll be watching, especially at right tackle. Linebackers is a good spot to watch too, because you get to see C.J. Hicks with that first team. Now Steele Chambers is out for the rest of the spring. But I mean,
those guys are going to be, though, C.J. Hicks, looks like Cody Simon, and then Gabe Powers will probably be running with the ones. Guess what Ryan told us about the ones? The ones are going to be in thud. And so
yeah,
I want to see those linebackers too, but it kind of takes,
I guess, in coverage, you can see what they can do, which is important.
You still see guys moving.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this has been a critical spring for several guys, and sometimes it's hurry up in that regard. But Gabe Powers, showing he belongs. I mean, I think he's done that. Reed Carrico, where does he stand? You know what I mean? There are a lot of guys and I think with having. In some instances, having people missing is a blessing, because you get to put the pressure, of playing and doing well on the guys that really need to show whether they are, have the stuff, so to speak.
Absolutely. We'll find out. It's going to be
Styles, man. I'm looking forward to watching him.
It's going to be a great next few days for this program. For Lettermen Row, we'll be inside the building, probably around for the coaching clinic Thursday and Friday, leading into the spring game on Saturday, the annual spring game. Ohio State, what was it, fellas? I think 50,000 tickets have already been sold. That's going to be a great attendance at that. Go get your tickets. Go get your tickets, yeah, because there's not many things I'd rather be doing than sitting in the horseshoe with you guys watching the Buckeyes on Saturday. Maybe Tim catching around to golf, but
no. I mean, dude, I love football. I like watching practice football. That's how messed up my life is.
I think we're all in that boat, Tim. That's why we're here.
Yeah, past that, I would encourage people with the crowd to sing. I'm not trying to sell tickets here, but they do have some that are reserved for like $15 and then $30. It might be a good time to hop on something like that.
Especially
if they have a walk-up crowd on Saturday, it could get huge like it has done here many times.
And there are people, who will wake up on Saturday morning, see that forecast, and think, man, it's a great day to go watch the Buckeyes. I'm going to do that.
What Boston College spring game draw?
How many people?
Andy, you've covered Boston College the last couple of years.
Yeah, 6 years actually. Usually around like 10,000. I mean, 50,000 is already more than they can fit in their stadium.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, different kind of
I told you I
vibe.
parked on one of their practice fields when I was a volunteer at the U.S. Open. That was one of the reserved parking areas, was one of Boston College football's practice fields. So
now that we're
not
talking,
quite the same fervor. Go
now
ahead.
that we're talking about the 2022 U.S. Open, I believe it's time to get out of here. The show is officially off the rails. That's okay, Tim. That's why we have you here. The 40-year vet, Tim May, he'll be here on Saturday for the Ohio State spring game. Andy Backstrom, I will be there as well. I'm Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you back in this building Friday morning for bold predictions. They're going to come back, folks. They're back. Thanks for watching.